All right, let's dive in. Today we're headed to Minnesota, specifically Lake Bemidji State Park. Picture yourself like surrounded by pine trees, beautiful lake views, maybe even a loon or two hanging out.
Sounds idyllic.
Right. And we've got a ton of info to sort through. We've got all trails reviews, YouTube videos from people who've actually been there, some insights from the Minnesota DNR, even a bit from good old Wikipedia, all about this park.
So like a real deep dive into the experience, not just the facts and figures.
Exactly. So All Trails ranks Lake Bemidji State Park number 31 out of 76 state parks in the whole state.
Okay, so above average, not bad.
Not bad at all. And the reviews, people are loving it. They talk about how beautiful the lake is and how the trails are really great for all levels of hikers, beginners, experienced hikers, everyone.
That's great, especially for a state park. You want it to be accessible.
Totally. And speaking of accessible, you know what else I found? This park is super dog-friendly.
Oh, that's important for a lot of people.
Right. Bring Fido actually confirms this. They say there are plenty of trails where you can take your leashed pup.
Awesome. So you can bring the whole family, furry friends included.
Exactly. But, okay, what really stood out to me, and it seems like a highlight in a lot of what we've seen, is this thing called the Bog Walk.
Okay. A bog walk. I'm intrigued.
It's a boardwalk. It's pretty short, like only a quarter mile. But it takes you right into a spruce tamarack bog.
No, I have to admit, I don't know much about bogs.
Right. So a bog is this type of wetland, and it's acidic. It's kind of low in nutrients.
Interesting. So not your typical lush forest environment.
Nope. It's like a giant sponge. It soaks up all this water, and it creates like a really unique habitat for all these, plants and animals that can survive in that.
Makes sense.
And get this, we're talking carnivorous plants here.
No way. Like what, Venus flytraps?
Well, not quite Venus flytraps.
Yeah.
But sundews, pitcher plants, even some rare orchids.
Wow.
Yeah. And, Minnesota state flower, the showy lady slipper.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
They have them in the bog.
That's incredible. So why do you think they have all these unusual plants in a bog?
Well, because the soil is so nutrient poor. These plants had to adapt, like the carnivorous ones. They trap insects and basically digest them to get the nutrients they need.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Right. I mean, talk about resourceful. And there's this YouTube video, Dirt Path Exploration, and they compare this bog to the Big Bog State Recreation Area, which is way up north.
So these bogs are like a recurring theme in Minnesota.
It seems like it. And speaking of recurring themes, there's a lot of history here, too. The Anishinaabe people, they've been here for generations. And they call the lake Bemidji, which means cutting sideways through.
That sounds like it has some significance.
It does. It refers to how the Mississippi River actually flows through the lake.
Oh, wow. So it was a crucial waterway for them.
Exactly. Not just for travel, but also for trade and their whole connection to the land. And speaking of history, get this, in the late 1800s, Lake Bemidji was like the center of the logging industry in the entire nation.
Whoa. Really? That's a big contrast to the peaceful park we're picturing now.
I know. Can you imagine? All that activity, all those trees.
It really shows how landscapes can change over time. What we see today is just a tiny snapshot of all the stories that have happened there.
Definitely. It makes you think about those loggers walking through those same forests, maybe even across that same bog walk.
And now we have these cozy camper cabins with heat and electricity year-round.
Yeah, and the park has 95 drive-in campsites, some with electricity, so you've got options.
That's great. So whether you're an RV enthusiast or more of a roughing it type, there's a way to experience the park.
Absolutely. But okay, cabins aside, let's talk about what you can actually DO at Lake Bemidji State Park.
Yeah, let's get to the fun stuff.
So besides the bog walk, there are 11 miles of hiking trails, all dog-friendly, of course. And then they have these paved bike trails that connect to, get this, the 120-mile Paul Bunyan State Trail.
120 miles. That's serious biking territory.
Right. I bet you could find some marathon runners training out there too. And don't even get me started on winter.
Oh, what happens in winter?
It becomes a winter wonderland. They have 11 miles of groomed cross-country ski trails, plus options for snowshoeing and snowmobiling.
So basically, no matter what time of year you visit, there's something to do.
Exactly. And if that's not enough, they've got a sandy swimming beach, picnic areas, a playground for the kids, boat rentals, even an amphitheater for, concerts and events.
It seems like they've thought of everything. So it's not just about nature, it's about creating a full experience for visitors.
Right. And speaking of creating things, did you know that those rustic-style buildings you see in the park, They were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps and the National Youth Administration back in the 1930s.
Wow, that's cool. So they're like historical landmarks too.
Yeah, they're actually listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
That adds a whole other layer to the park's story.
It does, doesn't it? Imagine those young people working on these buildings, and now their work is a part of this park's legacy.
It's pretty powerful when you think about it.
And, you know, a lot of the sources we've been looking at, they capture this like family-friendly vibe. This Drive North YouTube video shows this family exploring the trails, visiting the Paul Bunyan statues downtown, which, by the way, we have to talk about those.
The statues. I'm all ears.
Anyway, this video really shows how much fun you can have at this park, like with the whole family.
Creating memories, connecting with nature, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. And then there's this other video on Trail 82, and they focus on the beauty of that bog walk, how much there is to see in like just that short quarter mile.
It makes you wonder, how much do we miss when we're just rushing through?
Yeah, it's true. It's like we need to remind ourselves to slow down, appreciate the little things.
Pay attention to the details.
Yes. And speaking of details, did you know that Lake Bemidji State Park is home to 9 bird species with conservation status?
Yeah.
Like the endangered horned grebe, and the threatened common tern.
So this park isn't just a pretty place to visit, it's actually playing a vital role in protecting these species.
Absolutely. It's like a reminder that these natural spaces, they're not just for us. They're crucial for the survival of all these plants and animals.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, and Lakeland PBS did a video on the park's annual First Day Hike event.
What's that?
It's this event where they encourage people to start the new year by, you know, getting out in nature.
Yeah.
And they do this really cool thing where participants write down things they want to let go of from the previous year, and then they burn those notes in a fire.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
It is. It's like combining intention setting with outdoor recreation.
A fresh start for a new year.
Exactly. Okay, but now for something completely different. This article from The Traveler brought up something that, you know, we all struggle with. Technology in the outdoors.
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one.
Right. Some people want to unplug completely. Others, like me, we kind of want to have options. And it seems like this park caters to both.
So it's not about saying no technology. It's about finding that balance, right?
Yeah. They even talk about using technology to enhance your experience, like with geocaching or those virtual tours.
So you can choose your own level of tech involvement.
Exactly. And that's kind of been a recurring theme throughout everything we've seen about Lake Bemidji State Park, right? Like options. It's accessible. It's enjoyable for a wide range of people.
It makes sense, right? Nature shouldn't be this exclusive thing. It should be for everyone in whatever way they want to experience it.
And that brings us to V8.
Our final thoughts. Lake Bemidji State Park. We've seen how it blends recreation with preservation, all these different experiences, but they're still taking care of the nature and history there. It's a tough balance.
It really is. And it makes you think about the future, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what's next for a place like this?
Exactly, especially given its history as a logging hub. Now it's all about conservation. It raises this big question. What does sustainable coexistence look like in a place like this? How do we make sure future generations can enjoy the same things we do?
It's a heavy question. And not just for Lake Bemidji State Park, but for all the natural spaces we love. What we do today affects what happens tomorrow.
And it's not just us, it's a global issue, balancing our needs with what the environment needs.
It can feel overwhelming, like what can we actually do to make a difference?
Even small things help. Support your parks. Be mindful when you visit. Advocate for policies that protect the environment.
And learn. That's why we do these deep dives. The more we know, the more we can appreciate and protect these places.
Speaking of learning, remember those amazing drone shots from the Just Beyond Parks video? You could see the whole lake, those incredible forests surrounding it.
It really gave you a sense of scale. Like, wow, this place is huge.
And it's beautiful.
And remember those bog plants. Minnesota Seasons actually listed a bunch of the species you can find there, some specifically adapted to the bog's conditions.
That's incredible. Adapting to a place that would be, impossible for most plants. Life finds a way.
Bogs are so cool. They're like little pockets of mystery right here in Minnesota.
And they're important, too. They filter water. They store carbon. Vital for a healthy environment.
So I think we can agree. If you're looking for adventure or just need a break from, everything, Lake Bemidji State Park should be on your list.
Absolutely. Maybe you'll even spot a showy lady slipper while you're there. But remember, admire them from afar. These plants are fragile. We want to keep them around for a long time.
That's such a good point. We're just visitors in their world. So with that in mind, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Lake Bemidji State Park.
If you want to learn more, check out the links we've provided.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, let us know in the comments. We always love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious.
And if you do make it to Lake Bemidji State Park, don't forget to grab a picture with those Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox statues downtown.
Yeah. They're cheesy, but they're iconic. You have to do it.
Right. They're like a symbol of the whole area. Folklore, history, all that.
And it's fun. Sometimes travel's about those silly things too, right?
Totally. And speaking of fun, remember, Minnesota Northwoods mentioned bike rentals. Imagine cruising through the park on a bike.
That sounds great.
Doesn't it? A great way to see the park at your own pace. We also have boat, canoe, and kayak rentals if you want to get out on the water.
Can you imagine paddling across the lake early morning, mist rising off the water?
It's so peaceful.
It really allows you to connect with nature on a different level.
And if you're looking for a cool spot for an event, they've got the historic dining hall and an outdoor amphitheater right under the pines. You can actually rent them.
That's amazing. I can see a wedding there, a family reunion, even a concert.
Such a unique setting. And all while being environmentally conscious. Remember how we talked about their green practices?
Yeah. It's really great to see a place that takes that seriously. Eco-friendly purchasing, reducing waste, all of it.
They're setting a good example, showing that you can have fun and still be responsible.
Exactly. It's not one or the other. It's about finding that balance.
Well said. So I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Lake Bemidji State Park. What an adventure.
It really has been. We've covered so much. History, ecology, all those different activities.
We talked about bogs, biked through forests, paddled across the lake, even met Paul Bunyan.
It's been a great deep dive.
We hope you've enjoyed it, and maybe it's inspired you to check out Lake Bemidji State Park for yourself.
Always more to explore.
Get out there, embrace your curiosity, and have your own Northwoods adventure. Until next time, happy trails. You know, it's funny, right? Those statues, they're kind of cheesy,
Yeah.
but everyone seems to love them.
They're like a landmark,
Yeah.
right? Part of the whole experience.
Exactly. It's like travel isn't always about being super serious. Sometimes it's just about having fun.
And making memories.
Right. And speaking of memories, did you catch that Minnesota Northwoods mentioned bike rentals in the park?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that. Cruising through the park, wind in your hair.
It does sound pretty great, like a relaxing way to see everything.
Definitely. And if you're more of a water person, they also have boat rentals, canoes, kayaks, the whole deal.
Oh, I love kayaking. Can you imagine just like peacefully paddling across the lake?
Right. Early morning, mist rising off the water.
Exactly. It's so peaceful.
And you can see the wildlife, hear the sounds of the forest. It's a whole different way to experience the park.
Definitely. And, you know, if you're looking for a really unique spot for an event, they even have that covered.
Oh yeah, those historic buildings.
Yeah. They have this dining hall and an outdoor amphitheater. You can actually rent them.
Can you imagine, like, a wedding under the pines?
Beautiful.
Or a family reunion?
So cool.
Yeah. Seems like they've thought of everything. And they're doing it all in a sustainable way.
That's what's really impressive. Remember we talked about their green practices? It's great to see a place taking that seriously.
Yeah. Eco-friendly purchasing, reducing waste, all of that.
It's a good example for other places, you know?
Shows that you can have fun and still be responsible.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Lake Bemidji State Park.
It's been a good one.
We've covered so much: history, nature, those cool bog plants,
All the different activities you can do there.
biking, hiking, paddling, even meeting Paul Bunyan.
A little bit of everything.
So we hope you've enjoyed this journey with us.
And maybe it's inspired you to go see Lake Bemidji State Park for yourself.
Get out there, explore, have your own adventure.
Until next time, happy trails.
See?